Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for WLBT Plus. Joining me and the illustrious, the award-winning, the amazing Anthony Warren.
Keep going.
Anthony is a part of our digital team here, and odds are many of the news stories that you have read on our website, wlbt.com, have been written by this gentleman right here. He has been very much involved in a lot of the stories, investigations, a lot of the 3 on Your Side investigates, things like that. And so I have Anthony joining me today, and we're just going to kind of talk about some of the biggest stories that have happened in our area in 2024. It's been a very, very active year here.
I'm totally worn out.
I bet you are. I bet you are. All those words you type all day. Yeah.
It's like writing paper for college.
You do it every day.
Every
You
day.
do it every day. So we're going to talk about these. If you're watching on our website, wlbt.com, lbt.com, or our news app, we do appreciate you joining in there. And if you're tuning in on any of our streaming, our social streams, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, anything like that, thank you so much for joining us there. And make sure if you leave comments or thoughts or chime in on any of the stories that we bring to you or talk about today. I know a lot of you probably have some big opinions out there, but we're going to get into it. It's in no particular order. I think we may save the best for last. And we haven't talked about which one is the best, but I think we both know which one that's going to be. So let's go ahead and, we got somebody here. McCaster is saying, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. It is the very last day of there. Can you believe that 2025 is tomorrow?
It's so weird. It seems like this year has gone so slow at some points, and
Yes.
other points it's just sped by.
Sped by. I think about, I've been here since March. I'm coming up on almost a year here in Jackson, and it really just doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like I've been here a whole year, but then again, it seems like I've been here a whole lot longer. Thankfully, if my desk was any closer to Anthony's, it probably would have seemed like I've been here for so long.
I don't want to comment on your show.
Anthony is a great guy, and he takes a ribbing. I love that about him. Love it. But he also gives it right back. He doesn't just take. He also gives it right back as good as he takes it. So let's go ahead, check his mic. All right, and that's why we have Keith. Keith, you want to say hey?
Hi.
Hi. I think it's probably better now. It's probably good now.
Testing.
I don't think he.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he was on.
Oh.
So when I was in radio, it feels like a million years ago. When I was in radio, I always had a bad habit of not turning my partner's microphone on. So this is just keep picking up right where I was.
Well, that's good. It's it's good to have a routine.
Yeah, right. Good to have a routine. Okay, so let's talk about one of the biggest stories here in Rankin County that really it was a sad and vile and shocking thing that happened, and that's the Goon Squad. And talking about that, the the prison sentences that happened. So you were part of the investigation here at WLBT into the Goon Squad, right?
Some of it. I know mostly what I covered. I was there for 4 of the 6 sentencings in federal court,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in state court for the sentencings in Rankin County. And it was a really emotional experience
Yeah,
being there. It was draining.
I imagine so.
But there were some interesting moments too. One, these men all did heinous things.
Mm-hmm.
And they're paying the price for it, as they should. But to see the raw emotion in the courtroom, to hear one of the Goon Squad members turned around and actually said, "You know what? I did this. I'm going to take it like a man. I did something I shouldn't have done. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry." And to hear someone in the audience say, "Praise God," or something along those lines,
Yeah.
it was full of that. It was just this was this case to me was so amazing, because when the initial press release came out saying that these officers were involved in it, I was like, I could hardly believe it.
Right.
And then when they came out and said, yes, we did do this,
Mm-hmm.
and they were sentenced, it was just, words can't describe
Mm-mm.
any of it.
You think and you kind of hope that we have progressed enough as a society to not have acts of racial violence like that happen. And it's just sad and sad to see it not only happen, but then with it being here in Mississippi, and then the sad history that Mississippi has with that, and just to see it still happened here. It's just sad.
It's an embarrassment for our state, clearly.
It is.
But on the flip side, the sentences that came down were harsh. They came down quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, once this got out there, justice was served. It looks like the Rankin County Sheriff's Department's being investigated now.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of people are upset that this happened. So, as bad as it is, there possibly are some positives that can come out of it.
There are. Hopefully, you always hope for that silver lining to happen in any bad situation. Another story, another thing that we covered this year, that you covered a lot, is the completely switching gears here, but is the Thalia Hall.
Wow, a way to change gears on me.
Completely switching gears here, but Thalia Hall, you have really followed this since it was closed. It closed in the end of July, the beginning of August.
August 1st.
August the 1st.
Or July 30. Was there 31st in July? One or the other.
I don't remember.
Around that time, it did close. The microbial growth found in the building.
Right.
Well, we can say mold and fungus.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's that. That was just, and then to talk to, the closure was shocking in itself. But to talk to the manager, we did get an exclusive interview with her, and she said these were issues we have been talking about for months, and no one's addressed them.
Right.
And then she provided documents showing that.
Yeah.
That, for months on end, even small things like toilets weren't fixed.
Mm-hmm.
If the toilets aren't fixed, the other stuff isn't getting fixed either, and clearly it wasn't.
Right.
So to have it closed, to have the fire marshal come in and say, if you don't get things fixed, we're going to close it further. I don't know what more they could have done, but to have them come in and outline all the problems, it was just really, it was shocking to me. And then the impact this has had on the city and the morale on the city of Jackson,
mm-hmm.
because Thalia Hall, and I'm going to say it wrong. I say the name wrong every time.
We do give him a hard time. I say we. I'm probably saying it wrong too. They give him a hard time about that. But.
Oh, as we should.
Yes.
But to see it close, Thalia Hall is such an important piece of the fabric of Jackson, piece of the arts community. The ballet, the symphony, they've all performed there for years. It's home of the International Ballet Competition. Unfortunately, I've never been to that. I do want to go. If you ever get a chance to go to the opening ceremony, it's worth doing just that.
It sounds awesome. I didn't know that. So you just educated me on something I didn't know about.
Oh yeah. The next time it's here, I'm going. But I've been to the ballet there numerous times. I've been to stage productions there. It's a beautiful facility. To see it go down it's heartbreaking.
Now it is scheduled to open on the 17th.
January 17th.
In your professional opinion, although we don't have opinions here, do you think that it's going to open? Do you think that timeline is feasible based off of the history that you have followed with it?
I'm going to give the city the benefit of the doubt on this and say yes. Late last week, I filed an open records request and received it. More than $1 million has been spent to restore the facility since it closed. So I do believe the city is trying to get the work done. I hope it can open then, if not exactly that day, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt. Even if it's not that exact day, it's going to be around that time. I think they can do it.
Hopefully they can. What do you guys think, those that are watching right now? Do you think Thalia Mara Hall will actually open on the 17th? Or do you think that 17th or close to it? Or do you think that timeline is going to be pushed back again? Because, I mean, when it was first closed, they said it's going to be closed for about a month. And then Kevin Hart was scheduled to be there, and he rescheduled because they said, no, it's going to be back open. And then here we are moving into 2025, and it's still not open. So what do you think? Do you think it'll be open? Let us know in the comments here. Now, another thing that happened this year, and again, these are the big stories, some of the biggest stories, but we're not going in any particular order here with these. Joya says that I sure hope that it does. Me too. I hope that it does open. Bonnie Brown says she is a violinist with the Mississippi Symphony, and she hopes that we can open soon and that it is safe to work there. I love symphony music orchestras, and I was in the Meridian Youth Symphony when I was a kid. I played violin. I probably could not even pick out Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on a violin right now.
You say that you're gonna have to bring it up here one day and show us.
Oh, no. But I do hope that it opens up, and I would love to be able to be there and see that and watch it and get to experience that. I've never been inside of Thalia Mara Hall. Being a new person here, I didn't even know what it was until it closed. That's how sad or new I am still to the area.
Well,
but
it's a beautiful building. It's been used years ago, probably more than a decade ago. There was a major renovation there, and it was restored. I can't remember all the details of it, but they did a lot of work there, and it was beautiful. Got it ready in time for the international ballet competition then, and they did a lot of work's been put into it, and it really is a jewel for the city of Jackson. Yes. And I think the city's going to get it right. They can't afford to let this fall through. This is a big cultural icon for the city. Right. We've got to get that right.
And a bringer in of revenue.
Oh, it does bring in money.
Yeah. So it needs to be a mega up. Hopefully it will be. Monty said, thank you. Yes, please come to a performance. It is a wonderful experience. I definitely will do that. Let's talk and let's switch gears again. Let's go back into the courtroom and talk about a few court cases that we covered and followed this year. The retrial of Beth Ann White happened earlier this year. Of course, if you're not familiar with Beth Ann White, she is the individual who was sentenced to, I believe it was life in prison.
It might as well be life. I think it's about 110 years.
Right.
Like 25 years per count, and then I think 10 years per one count. I think she got the maximum in all of them.
But she was charged, or she was drunk driving and got into a wreck that took the life of a mother, a 6-month-old baby, and then really devastatingly injured 2 young children. A horrible, a sad situation. But this was her 4th DUI that she, when this wreck happened. And so she went to jail. We covered her first trial. And then it was,
there was a mistrial the first time. I don't know all the details of it. But I know the second time around, it was not. I think trial was a few days, and I don't even remember deliberations for the jury being that long either.
They weren't that long. I remember I was covering it here, and the deliberations were not that long at all. But she was found guilty. So her case is being appealed, and we are waiting to hear what we know that the Supreme Court has accepted. It will hear the case as they do with all criminal cases like that go before the Supreme Court. They do hear them all, but we know that the Supreme Court will hear it, and we're going to just wait and see what happens with that. Kevin Camp is her attorney, which we'll talk about another case that Kevin Camp tried in just a little bit as well. But yeah, Kevin Camp was her attorney. So Beth Ann White was one case that we covered. Then we also covered here more recently is the William Polo Edwards trial. And he was found guilty.
He was.
He was found guilty.
Sentenced to life in prison for the murder. I can't remember the guy's name, but
yeah.
But I remember he did murder someone, found guilty.
Yep.
Was his own attorney, compared himself to Jesus.
He did compare himself to Jesus.
Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
Martin Luther King.
Yes. There was also a couple of other well-known figures that he compared himself to, and I was just kind of listening to him going, what?
Verlicia was so lucky. Verlicia Gavin, one of our reporters, she was so lucky to cover that trial. Yeah. I would have loved to have been there just to watch that.
Right. Well, it was quite astonishing to watch, sitting on this end and just hearing him compare himself to these and being asking all the questions that he asked, asking the witnesses and stuff like that. I really, though, think that Judge Faye Peterson, who saw his case or oversaw his case, or not his case, the trial, rather. I'm sorry. She did an amazing job.
She had a difficult task.
She did have a difficult task, and she did a great job. She was, I believe, in that she gave more than she had to, and I know it wasn't to ensure that there was a fair trial that was given, so that it couldn't come back as being a mistrial or anything like that. But she did a great job overseeing that case.
Yeah, I even wonder how you would appeal that case.
You can't do it based off of poor representation because that was him. He did it himself. So
about all you got. Maybe that was the strategy.
Maybe that was the strategy. We don't know. But so that was another case that we followed. Another one that we covered here was the case of Jimmy J. Lee. And that is the Oxford or the Ole Miss student who was killed. Or let me take that back. The Ole Miss student who is allegedly killed. The body has not been found. They have not been found. Him is still missing.
Well, he has been declared legally dead.
He had, yes.
In November, a judge did declare that because he's been missing for 2 years.
Right. But that case ended in a hung jury. Had 11-1. 11 people were going to find him the accused murderer guilty, and 1 was holding out. So I guess we're just going to have to wait for that to get retried.
We are, if it gets retried.
If it gets retried.
But I do think they already were going to set a date for the new trial. But that's a wild case in itself.
It is.
And it's so tragic. The Jimmy J. Lee disappearing the day of his mother's birthday. She received his last text. And just, I can't imagine not having the closure in that case. Yeah,
I think that's probably, if I were to put myself in the position of that mother, of the unknown, and not having that closure would just be heartbreaking. Even more heartbreaking on top of what happened. Heartbreaking.
And there's no way. What gets me too is there's really, how did it happen? You see the stuff in the trial, but I still don't. There's so many questions I have left unanswered.
So many questions. A lot of questions that are left unanswered in another case that we heavily covered here at Wlbt. And we actually also kind of had a part, if you will, in the case is the case for Carly Gregg. Carly Gregg, of course, is the teenager. She was 14 at the time who shot and killed her mother, Ashley Smiley, in Brandon, and then attempted to kill her stepfather, Heath Smiley. We've covered that from the day the crime happened all the way up until the trial. And of course, we're still covering it and following it because they will be appealing that, going to the Supreme Court as well. Kevin Kemp is the attorney there. It was Kevin Kemp and Bridget Todd who covered that and was the defense attorneys for Carly Gregg. But that is a case that really kind of took the country by storm. I mean, it went viral on a lot of different social media platforms, just because of her age and her getting sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
And the heinous nature of the crime.
Yes.
Shooting her with a .357 3 times.
Point blank, essentially, because I mean, one of the shots that was fired was less than 36 inches away. They could tell that because of the stippling with the gunpowder and all that stuff. I think this is probably one of the cases that I'm extremely familiar with because I sat here and was here for every moment of the court trial, watching that. And
Yeah, you
and
did
all the
yeoman's
stuff.
work on that. You really did.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did. The thing that got me with that trial is the video where you hear the firing or the shots, and then you hear, what was that, humming or singing?
It was Carly, singing in the video. The video, there's so many different elements of that trial and that crime and that murder, that just all of it just makes you go. It makes you cringe, and it's a thing where we really will never know why, because Carly did file guilty by reason of insanity, although she was the jury did not find that to be the case. They just found her to be guilty. I said guilty, not guilty by reason of insanity. Make sure I said that correctly. But it's her reasoning behind the whole thing was, what we know is that she was having a lapse in sanity, and she was having a lapse then. So we never found out from Carly why this happened. Why? What was the reason? I mean, we know, we can speculate, and we know what has been told, as far as there being, the mother finding the vape pen and learning all of this stuff about Carly. But it's just like, why? Why did this happen?
There's so many unanswered questions. Until Carly talks, we're probably not going to know.
We're probably not going to know about that at all.
I still think one of the most interesting things was the interview that was done here. I think you did the interview with Bridget Todd and Kevin Kemp. That was a really interesting interview to me. Some of the comments that really stood out were talking about how Ashley Smiley was rolling over in her grave knowing this was happening to her daughter.
Yes.
And then talking about how Bridget Todd, and this isn't a comment on Bridget Todd or Kevin Kemp, but just some of the things that were said that were shocking to me, was the other comment was how she didn't believe Carly was a danger to society. And seeing what happened in that trial, seeing what happened the day of the murder, posing as her mother to text her stepdad to get him to come home so she could kill him, according to court records. I will throw that in there.
Yes.
And then inviting a friend over and asking the friend if they've seen a dead body.
Yes.
That's scary.
It is very scary. It is very, very scary, because she was a child. She was a child. And we know now that she may have been a child. She was a genius. She was very, 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 very smart. And she may have just been too smart for her own good. Was it brilliance, or was it a temporary insanity, or was it a brilliant mind that was calculating and murderous? And I mean, that's what she was, because it was murder. She did commit murder, and it's sad. So that's one of the big cases. Let's talk about a case that we covered too, and this is actually something that kind of ended up being good, is the release of Anthony Fox.
That's a very interesting story. I was fortunate to get to cover that along with Patrice Clark. And the web version of that story, it took me 3 days to write my capstone paper for graduate school, which I'll be paying off for the rest of my life. And it took me longer to write this story. It was just, there were so many different elements to it, so many things that were said. You have an officer who is now with Clinton saying the district attorney of Hinds County was targeting him. And
which is Marshan. No, I'm wrong.
Jody Owens.
Who is saying he targeted him?
Anthony Fox is saying.
That's right. I'm sorry. I got lost in the conversation.
Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. But Anthony Fox is saying Jody Owens targeted him, and gives, his side of the story and his evidence. And then I think it was just days later, we have this indictment that comes down where Jody Owens is basically saying, I prosecute, and I'm paraphrasing, I prosecute people who I want to prosecute, and people come to me if I want to prosecute it. It was just really, I don't know if it was serendipity that played a role in that, but it was a really interesting, they're unrelated cases, but it's just really interesting how that unfolded. And of course, when we spoke to DA Owens, who, I've known for several years, I've always enjoyed working with him. He's always been nice to me, always been provided the information I've needed. Of course, he denies it, but that's another case where there's a lot of questions that we're looking into that we're still trying to get answers on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So just, I would say stay tuned on that. But to sit down with Anthony Fox and to really have that interview with him and to hear his side of the story with what happened with George Robinson, that was a great story, great opportunity. And just to get that story out there, I was just excited to be a part of that.
Yes. And it's good to hear that, even though he spent 533 days in jail, there was over 530.
552 maybe. I don't have the exact number.
I could pull the story up right here. How about I do that?
That's
and then
a good
we'll
idea.
know for sure. Anthony, this is 552 days. You were right on the money.
Well, I'm glad I remembered that.
I am impressed, sir. But yeah, so he spent
552 days.
52 days in jail. But now he is out. And
it's a very compelling story to hear a police officer, a former police officer, arrested after he says he was doing his job, to hear how the FBI decided they were not going to prosecute the case, and for him to still be charged, to be convicted, to spend 552 days in jail, and then to get that case overturned that's a compelling story in itself.
It is.
And to hear his side of the story, it's an amazing story all the way around.
Yes.
And, you have to feel sorry for the family of George Robinson because I know they don't have closure. I don't have a comment on the case one way or the other, but it's a compelling story.
Yes, it definitely is. Well, let's talk one more. Let's switch gears again, and let's talk about Hotel O here. That has been a big topic of conversation, of press conferences here. And of course, Hotel O is the eyesore of a hotel right off of the interstate here in Jackson. And it's a hot spot for crime. And
a lot of vagrancy, a lot of homelessness, a lot of drug use going on there. I know the owner has come in, from what I understand, and boarded up a lot of the property, but the city is going to tear it down. They're waiting they have to complete the asbestos abatement and study on it to determine what needs to be done before they can tear it down, but it is coming down. The council's approved tearing it down, but that hotel, the property rather, has been a problem for years. Even before I worked here, in my previous job, I covered what was the hotel before Hotel O was there, and they were having similar issues.
Really?
No, yeah, you could drive up to it. Hotel doors were open, mattresses were outside, windows were broken. It was disgusting. And unfortunately, it still has been up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little better visually now because that is boarded up. But still, it's just an eyesore. I'm glad that it's coming down.
It's an eyesore. It's right on the interstate along a really, part of Jackson that's doing well. It's across the street. I know Councilman Kenneth Stokes has talked about this a good bit. You've got Highland Village across the street. You've got Maywood Mart across the street. And he says that needs to come down so it doesn't start impacting other businesses.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I imagine too, and just the hotel right beside it. That can't be good for business.
No, it can't.
No.
It can't, because I mean, the one beside it, is that Oyo that's beside it?
I think it is, yes.
And it's a nice looking, building, nice looking property. And then you've got Hotel O there bringing the entire area down. So thankfully Hotel O will be brought down. Hopefully
sooner than later.
Yes, hopefully soon. One more thing that you've been talking about, then we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from our sponsor. And then we're going to talk about the biggest story of the year that will probably go down as also the biggest story of 2025, possibly. But let's talk about the Jackson Zoo. I know you love the zoo, Anthony.
I love the zoo. And, full disclosure, I worked at the zoo for a while.
No, you did not.
I did. I was a birthday party captain there. And it was a lot of fun.
That's adorable.
That's one word for it. I needed the extra money, and I got to set up birthday parties. And
I could totally see you doing that.
That's what I did good at.
I'm not being sarcastic either. I really could see you doing that.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it. The money wasn't great, but it helped out. And it was a lot of fun. I got to set up parties and bring out the cake and bring out the punch and take the kids on the tour of the zoo.
How was the zoo back then?
A lot better.
Well, I mean, I say compared to now, but I mean, like, what was it like back then?
That was more than a decade ago. And it was right after the zoo got rid of the elephants. They were still had most of its major animals there. People did want to come see the elephants, but the zoo is doing pretty well. I know I worked for Boo at the Zoo one year, and that was 6 nights, and they were able to have, a really good attendance there, with the scary hayride they had and the movie they had and all the candy they were giving out. So it was still thriving at the time. It was going down some, but it was still doing pretty well. A far cry from where it is now.
I see a lot of times in the comments when I talk about the zoo here, a lot of people say how the zoo needs to be moved from the location that it is in, that it could, that should be moved maybe over to where the science museum or the children's museum is, and over into that area, and that it would do better there. What do you think that it would, or would probably be so costly to do? I wonder if the good would outweigh the bad of the cost for it.
Well, my biggest question on that would be, first of all, I do agree with the mayor. I would hate to see the zoo moved from that area. In a perfect world, we'd have about $50 or $60 million deposited right in that area, and it would save it.
Yes.
But I don't know what's going to happen. But if you moved it to LaFleur Bluff, I think some of the concerns there would be, yes, there'd be a lot more traffic. It'd be around other attractions, but flooding from the Pearl River, how would that impact it?
That's true.
There could possibly be other spots. I spoke to one other local reporter who suggested it could be moved to near Tougaloo College. That's a possibility. But the zoo property itself, I would say this: the zoo property itself is beautiful property. It's got a lot of historic value to it. It's in an area that's not doing very well, but it is right off the interstate, only a mile or two down Capitol Street, which you have to get there. But when you're there, my times going out there, I've never experienced any crime. I've never had a problem out there when I was working there, even when I've gone out there reporting. But then again, the problem is there's a perception that the area is bad. There's significantly fewer animals there than there used to be. It's not generating the money it needs. So I don't know what the solution is. I just know it's not in good shape right now.
Yeah. Hopefully it can be one of those things, kind of like Thalia Mara Hall. It can be restored and renovated, and if maybe not brought back to former glory, brought back to a new level of enjoyment for everybody.
Yeah, because I think every kid needs to go to the zoo.
Yeah.
People say you can go online and look at all the animals. I enjoy going to the zoo.
There's nothing like seeing them in person.
That's
There's
true.
nothing like seeing them in person.
Yeah, you enjoy doing that. You enjoy getting a hamburger there if you can, and just the outing and the experience, being out in the fresh air. I love the zoo personally, and there's a lot of good people that work there and who are doing their job and want to do the job right. I want to see it thrive. I don't know what the solution is, but I want to see it thrive.
Well, hopefully it can thrive. Hopefully the city of Jackson will get behind it so that it can thrive. Not saying that they are not, or that they're not taking the steps, but hopefully that can really happen. And speaking of the city of Jackson and some of the leadership within the city of Jackson, right after we hear from our sponsor, Jackson Water, we're going to talk about the biggest story, we believe, of 2024 here. We'll be right back.
Time for a neighborly tip from Jackson Water. Is it okay to pour fats, oils, and greases down the drain if I run hot water?
No!
What if I run the garbage disposal?
No!
How about if I use dish soap at the same time?
No!
Instead, hang on to a few containers to store and toss old cooking fat and grease once you're done. Jackson Water. Water for all the time.
Pay the bills.
And again, thank you so much to Jackson Water for sponsoring WLBT Plus, so that we can come to you every day, every weekday at 1:00. And then we have our weather shows that come in at 10 and 2:30 as well, plus other content that we are preparing and getting ready for you guys. Well, let's talk about the biggest story And on the count of three, Anthony, let's say it together.
The Jackson bribery
Well, I
scandal.
didn't count to three
I'm
yet,
sorry.
but okay.
It just came out.
It just came out. We just knew that's what it was. So the biggest story that we believe has happened here in the city of Jackson in 2024 is the Jackson bribery scandal. Started back in August, and that's when Angelique Lee submitted her resignation effective immediately from city council. She was over what ward?
She was Ward 2.
Ward 2. And then right after her resignation was announced,
She was seen going into the federal courthouse
mhm,
where she pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy. I think it was conspiracy to commit bribery.
it is, or it was, yes. And then, so that was the very first thing that happened. Of course, we found out information. A lot of names were, not blacked out, but a lot of names of those involved in this case were not made public yet because investigations or things were still happening.
Mhm.
Then the second person who was indicted on that is
Well, the second person was Marvay Smith,
Marvay Smith. That's
Hines County
right.
businessman. Now, I will say this: he was never indicted. There was a bill of information
That is correct.
because he pled guilty.
That's right. CJ taught me that. CJ Lemaster taught me that, and I am the one that spoke wrong on that. So thank you for taking CJ's role and
Well,
correcting me.
if I don't correct you, he'll correct you again.
Yes, he will.
And I would tell that to him too.
Yes. But so the bill of information came down, and then Marvay pled guilty.
Pled guilty to the same count.
Mhm,
I think both of them at the most face 5 years in prison,
mhm.
fine of $250,000, and those were the first two individuals. That was just the opening salvo, so to speak, in this whole case, because and it was pretty obvious once the indictment for Marvay Smith came. No, I'm sorry, bill of information. My mistake. It got me
Yeah,
too.
got you.
But the bill of information for Marvay came down that it was likely that the other two individuals involved, one was the mayor
Hmm.
and one was a councilman. There were the rumors on which councilman it was, and obviously we know now. But one was very clear. It had to be the mayor. It couldn't be anyone else. It said an elected city official who directed another employee to do something.
Hmm.
Only one elected official, according to state statute, can direct employees in the city of Jackson.
Right.
That's the mayor.
Right.
And of course, the mayor denied all the allegations until it was almost
Mhm.
too late.
Sorry, we got some breaking news we need you on, buddy.
We have
Oh.
breaking news. Okay. Well,
Okay.
we'll jump off here in just a second. We have
Okay.
breaking news. So
Wow.
since you know now that we have breaking news, make sure you download the WLBT news app so that you can get that our breaking news alert is going to come out in just a few moments from Anthony Warren here. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we
Thank you.
got through some of the biggest stories of 2024, and we will see you not tomorrow, but we'll see you on Thursday as we begin 2025 here. Everyone have a great day.